Good morning and welcome to Mental Health Matters Office Hours with me, Dr Audrey Tang. My co-host is Judith Crosier, and this is the show where we cover all things workplace wellbeing. We welcome back Dr Hayley Lewis, the founder of Halo Psychology. She really got us thinking about the workplace and burnout with her illustrations and discussion over what really is burnout. And we are going to be tackling a similar topic that affects leaders. What happens when you take over a team that doesn't want to do any work? Let's head over to the studio.
Good morning, Dr Hayley. It's lovely to see you back on the show. Welcome back.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's great to see you.
Definitely.
The topic we're talking about today is very close to your heart. The new manager who inherits an underperforming team. So what are some of the issues that might happen in that scenario?
Yeah, I love managers full stop, but yeah, particularly new managers. I think the most common things that I see when they've inherited an underperforming team are things such as being undermined on their decisions, staff just ignoring requests is a common one.
Wow.
Passive-aggressive behaviour, sometimes outright argumentative behaviour, and just stuff not being progressed. So stuff might be agreed at a one-to-one meeting and then nothing happens. These are all really common issues that particularly new managers that I coach or teach come to the table with.
That's
Okay, difficult then, isn't it, for the new manager?
It's quite aggressive, actually, and passive-aggressive as well.
Yeah.
And I guess when you're trying to make a good impression, it's really hard when you're dealing with people who are deliberately doing their best to undermine you.
Yeah. Yes, and having kind of seen that from both sides, it's really hard, and it can be really awkward as well. Yeah.
And sometimes I think it's not even. I think for some it is intentional. I think for many underperforming teams, they've just never had that behaviour called out. So it's not an intentional. It's just it's never been a problem before, and that's due to poor management in the past.
Yeah. And so all the issues are kind of highlighted then when the new manager starts potentially.
That's true.
So how might you firmly but fairly redress that balance?
Well, the starting premise, and I would say this as an evidence-based practitioner and a psychologist, you've got to look at the root cause.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that I just talked about actually is just a symptom, or they're symptoms. I'm coaching a new manager at the moment, and we've been exploring exactly that.
Oh, wow.
They gave an example of they asked a member of staff to do some new stuff with their team. And this member of staff said, no, we don't have the skills, we don't have the time. And my client was really frustrated and was being quite judgmental about that team member. And I said, look behind. What do you think is feeding that reaction? And when we explored it, he had the realisation that she's probably afraid, actually. She's probably afraid of taking this new thing on, it going wrong, and maybe her and her team getting the blame.
Right.
So the starting premise when I work with managers is don't just react to the symptom. Think about what emotion is or feelings are behind that, because that's where you've got to get to. That's the good stuff that you've got to get to. And then it sounds simple, and I know it's sometimes easier said than done, but actually very early on agreeing kind of ground rules, ways of working as a team, but also one-on-one, because I like to respect the uniqueness of each human being, and I think having that conversation very early on, particularly around how you can support each other, but also how to constructively challenge each other. I've got a little framework actually that I can share with you. You can share in the show notes.
Oh, amazing!
For anyone to use they can use in one-to-one conversation.
That would be fantastic, because that's always really helpful. Any sort of practical tools can be really, really useful.
Yes.
And this kind of then relates to my next question, because if a previous manager has kind of not known what they were doing, just they're winging it. And their team, who maybe is really hardworking, they don't want to fail. They've found their own ways of doing stuff. But when you find your own way of doing stuff, you get quite attached to it.
Yeah.
So you haven't got a lazy team. In fact, you've got a really hardworking team. They've just chosen to do things in a perhaps not according to procedure way because they were never guided. How do you start addressing and unpacking that without threatening them? Because they did what they could do.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you've hit the nail on the head. In my experience, and I'm sure both of yours, very rarely is it about laziness. Sometimes it is, but very rarely. There's always something else going on where that stuff hasn't been addressed, or there just might be other stuff going on. I think I would always recommend to any manager in that situation to get some help. It's really hard to do this stuff on your own. So whether you work with a coach, whether you have a mentor, if you've got a good relationship with your own line manager who should be more experienced than you, kind of getting advice from them, making sure you're going on management development courses, maybe that your organisation offers, maybe put on with HR or whoever. And if you're working in an organisation actually where you're just not going to get access to any of that stuff, maybe because of a lack of budget or resources, there's so much great free content out there. There's some brilliant people making stuff on YouTube for managers. There's stuff on LinkedIn. There's always somewhere to go and get some advice or get some free learning. But I think at the heart of this is to do that exploration and have those important conversations that are needed to move your team on. It's really hard to do it on your own. It's important to have that kind of support team around you. That would be my advice.
And then this is probably a problem that all managers may encounter, whether they're new or not. You've got a team who is working up to the job description, and that's great. There will be moments in the year. So, for example, you're working for an accountancy. April, very tough time. You're going to have to maybe go over and beyond. Maybe you're going to have to pull a couple of late nights. But that team is not willing to do it. But there's a counter to that. If people are too willing to do it, then you get burnt out. How do we have this balance between maybe pushing when you need to push, but not doing it as habit?
Yeah, I think, and it's such an important point you raise. I'd say, and I've been thinking about this a lot, and my own and my profession's culpability in pushing that agenda of discretionary effort, getting people to be motivated to do more. And I'm kind of undoing that for myself and in my own work. I would say if they're doing their jobs and they're doing them to the level expected and they're delivering what's expected, that's performance. That they are performing. I think that's not underperformance.
No.
I think in terms of, as you rightly pointed out, there are going to be those moments at various points, whether it's a crisis, whether it's a key point in the year, such as for accountancy, where you want and you need people, including yourself, to put that additional effort in. I think there are a number of things. You can't just expect them to do that. It's all the things that you've done before to create a culture where people are supported and respected and looked after and valued. I use my own experience when I was a manager in local government. We had a big crisis. We had major floods in the area, and we had to evacuate 300 households overnight. We had to work with the army and all sorts.
Gosh.
I needed to switch my service because I was leading communications and digital services. We had to switch to a 24-hour,
of course,
7 days a week service. Every single team member rolled their sleeves up and dug in. But it was everything that happened before that moment that meant they felt able to and were happy to step up. I also made sure that I rolled my sleeves up. I was working late hours as well to get stuff done. So I wasn't expecting them to do it, and I wasn't doing it. We were
Yes.
all in it together. So it's not an easy answer, because this stuff that we're talking about isn't easy. We're talking about team culture. We're talking about how people feel. It's it's everything that you're doing, so that when you have these pinch points, people are willing to do it temporarily. I think the other thing is just good HR practice. Make sure people are noting down extra hours that they're doing, and making sure there's time off in lieu, and that gets booked in. And again, all of that goes into kind of the emotional bank account, if you like, that you have with staff.
I think that's really important advice also for new managers, because you're talking about a crisis point, but you've had to have had that culture in the first place. And so for any new manager, I guess what you're also saying is, as difficult as it can be to start with, you have to create that culture where you are not just doing what you're expecting of other people, but seen to be doing and caring and being compassionate and all of those things. And I think sometimes we forget that, because as new managers, you're panicking, aren't you? You're thinking, I've got to get the job done. I need to get the skills done. I need to produce whatever I need to produce. And in doing that, we forget, but I've got to have support from other people.
Exactly. And I also think that new managers want to establish their authority straight away. And sometimes that's not the best thing to do, or not the most conducive thing to for your team to work hard for you.
It's very true.
It requires self-awareness. So that's, we know that's one of the most important factors for anyone. It doesn't matter where you are in your career as a manager, is a really high level of self-awareness, including acknowledging some of the stuff that you struggle with, and doing something about it. And the earlier you can start doing that in your management career, and the earlier that you're willing to do that and look at yourself and the part that you're playing in the situation, the better.
Yes, definitely. It is. The earlier that you recognise it's nothing to do with shaming anyone, it's just, this is important to look at. We're keeping you, Dr. Hayley. We'll be back just after this.
When we're looking at the body, we know that the cells are changing all the time. So, if you're looking at your gastrointestinal tract from your mouth all the way through, that's changing every 6 weeks. And so some of the cells that we've got in our body, it will be years before they'll actually turn around. But some of the cells do change really rapidly. So we can have an impact very, very early on.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean, so like you could say, I've lost 10 years. But if you start today, you can't go back, but you can actually make a difference in the next 3, 4, 5 years going forward.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours. We're here with Dr. Hayley Lewis. She's the founder of Halo Psychology, and our focus is on new managers. And there's not just new managers that can run into issues, but you have the problem of new starters as well. And I guess it's even worse if you're a new manager having to deal with this, because there might be someone who looks absolutely brilliant on paper, performs well in the interview, but then suddenly when they're actually in practice, they just can't do the job. And yes, fine, use the probation period, but how can you A, avoid the mistake in the first place, and sort of, or B, maybe try and help them as far as you can, and maybe know when it's right not to. But how do we avoid the mistake in the first place, I think, is the key.
Yeah. It's nothing is ever foolproof. There is no kind of solution that's 100% going to do the job. However, there are things that we can do to help ourselves. The three of us know that just relying on an interview is kind of dangerous territory. There's so many studies, there are so many scientific studies that show interviews are not the most reliable source of evidence and form of selecting, and particularly certain types of interviews. And so if that's all you're relying on, you're kind of making life really hard for yourself potentially further on down the line, particularly if the person that you're interviewing is really good at managing impressions. And we know some people are really good at that. So I would always advocate, and this is I spent the first 8 years of my career doing this is running assessment centres. So so making sure you're using a variety of activities that also surface behaviours. So whether it's role play exercises, presentations, kind of cognitive tests, personality tests. You don't have to do all those things because, again, I'm kind of conscious of people's budgets. But often what I've come across over the years is hiring managers or senior leaders saying, well, we don't have the time, that's going to take too much time. My challenge back to them is this is going to save you time, because if you hire the wrong person, you're going to have to go out again. That's going to be costly. That's going to potentially impact the performance of the team because you're going to lose a person. There potentially is reputational issues as well. So it's like the tortoise and the hare. Do you want to rush it? Or do you want to maybe just take a little bit more time, be a bit more thorough, and potentially save yourself a huge headache and a load of paperwork later on down the line?
I think that's really important because, I mean, some organisations who have got that time and budget, they do overnight ones where you're having to have dinner as well, because then everyone lets their guard down a little bit. They're not in the interview, but you've got all of the management in part of that dinner and you don't know who's who. But you need to behave. I used to use escape rooms because escape rooms, you can say, oh, I'm a great communicator. You put them in an escape room, they're not talking to anyone. You can see straight away. It's great. But you're absolutely right. It is about using lots of different skills and making them almost do the job. which I think that's so important. This is an interesting one as well. You can sometimes have new managers who were part of the team before and they've been promoted. Now, I'm not talking about the, you will of course get the, well, why don't you get promoted and not me? You'll have that. But what other problems are they likely to face, and how do they overcome them, especially if they've grown up with a team and so on?
Yeah, I think, well, the main mistake that I see most often is it always makes me think of, if anybody is watching or listening to this, remember Stars in Their Eyes. So they go out as the peer on a Friday. And then they expect to come back in on the Monday through the smoke.
I'm the manager.
And they're the manager. And everything has magically changed and everybody's on board with that. And it doesn't work like that. No. There's stuff you need to be doing before if you're a peer. And then there's some intentional stuff that you need to be doing from that Monday or whenever you've become the manager. And I always talk to clients about having a plan. There's a brilliant concept developed by a guy called Michael Watkins called the first 90 days. And I think it doesn't matter if you're moving into a new role in another organisation or you're moving role inside your organisation, such as from peer to manager. Having that first 90 days, so you're kind of resetting, is really important, because that helps you reset your relationships, define your boundaries, think about the support that you need, what success looks like on day one, week one. That requires thought.
Yes, I like that, because almost you need a playbook for that, because you've got almost the new manager playbook, and if you don't have, I mean, I wrote one, but also you have the handover, you have the shadowing, you have all that one, but you have the handover, you have all of that extra stuff. But you don't have exactly what you said, Hayley, and I didn't put it in my book, I'm ashamed to say as well, the thought process of what does it look like to me? How do I need to behave? How do I want my team to receive me? And I think those things are really, really important. So,
and you can do that yourself. I mean, it's great if you've got a mentor or a really good relationship with your line manager who can help facilitate those conversations. But it is also possible to do that yourself with some reflective questions. Again, I've got a little template I've created for not just for new managers who have moved from a peer role, but for anybody moving into a new role. So I've got a first 90 days template inspired by Michael Watkins' work. So I can share that with you to put in the show notes if anybody's transitioning into a new role. It just has some questions and things to think about for day one, week one, month one, and so on and so forth.
That would be
and
so
reflection
helpful.
points.
Yeah, it's so helpful because that's something that if you know, because you're going to know you're going to be the manager at least a month minimum in advance, you can start thinking about that now.
Yeah,
so that's
exactly.
so helpful. No, thank you, Dr. Hayley. That's amazing. That is amazing.
Really, really useful tool. So what about friendships that might already be established and maybe social media connections even? How do you navigate new boundaries around that?
I mean, as awkward as it is, it's about having the conversation. I'm a great believer in calling things out. I think when we call things out and acknowledge it, it takes a bit of the awkwardness out of it. But I think if you avoid that conversation and avoid the conversation with the person who was and is your friend, and acknowledging, look, you know, I am in this management role now. I've got to be really careful not to be seen to be having favourites. I'm sure you understand that. So having that conversation and not avoiding it is really important, because the danger is if you carry on as normal, you will be accused of favouritism. You could end up having formal grievances against you. I've seen that, and I've investigated grievances.
That's really serious.
So it's, you know, as sticky as it might be having that conversation early on, I guarantee it'll only be harder potentially further on down the line if you don't. And I use my own example of this. One of my very first jobs, when after I'd graduated from my undergraduate degree, so this is back in '95. It was my first job. I couldn't get it was difficult to get jobs at that point because there was still a recession, and I got a job in a catering team, and my boss was brilliant, Doug. I will always be grateful to him. And I would go out with the kitchen staff. We'd have a laugh. I'd go and have a job. I mean, I was 21, 22, and then I got promoted to duty manager, and I had to reprimand one of the kitchen staff, one of the porters, and he didn't like it because we'd been out the night before on the lash, having a laugh, and suddenly here I was, telling him he was having a written warning, and he went nuts and made a complaint. And that was a really harsh but important lesson. And Doug said to me, he said, when you're in management, you can be friendly, but you can't be friends, because how can you might have to fire someone that you've been out with the night before, you've been partying with. He's like, you can be friendly, but you can't always be friends. And that's always stuck with me.
That's really difficult, isn't it? So for the manager then to kind of establish those new boundaries is really important. But what if your friend refuses to accept that new kind of difference in status, if you like, or authority?
You can't force anybody to accept anything, but I think what you can do is hold the line from your end and be consistent.
Yes.
Because I think the danger, if you're giving mixed messages, if you're saying one thing, but then you're still doing what you used to do, maybe going out just for lunch with them, other team members are going to be like, hang on a minute, what's going on here? And also things like, and I've seen this, and I'm sure you've both seen this, I've witnessed this as well when I worked inside organisations, managers telling their friend, who's also a team member, stuff about other team members.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, so those are it's not that you can't be friends, it's not that you can't go to your friend's baby shower or whatever, but don't cross the line, you know, no gossiping.
Yeah.
So if you had a gossipy friendship, and look, we've all got that friend that we like a bit of a gossip with, because we're human, right? You cannot do that as a manager.
Yeah.
Well, you can. Just get ready for kind of all sorts of trouble further down the line, is what I would say.
Huge.
You asked the question about social media as well. I've got some thoughts on that, if that would be helpful.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just for managers, but there's something about the appropriateness, and in a former life, I was in a head of comms role, and I was responsible for media and reputation. And we always talked about the Daily Mail test. It's what a lot of comms teams talk about. It's not just about the Daily Mail. I just want to make that clear now. But that if I did this thing, if I reposted this or retweeted, or if I said this thing, could it end up on the front page of the national paper?
I like that.
Or could I end up in front of a tribunal, employment tribunal? And so these are always the questions that I suggest anyone who's working in any kind of work profession environment ask themselves, but particularly when you are in a more senior role, you know, could this end up being an HR issue? Could this be a news headline? Is this thing I'm sharing or commenting on as bants with a friend, is this something I would be okay saying?
Yes.
Yeah.
Or sharing in front of real human beings?
Yes.
If I'm not, then I shouldn't share it online.
That's important advice for social media in general as well. We're keeping you, Dr. Hayley. We'll be back just after this.
One thing that I've been able to do is recognise that and hone it in when it's not useful. So it is useful sometimes. If I want to do a piece of work and I've got a deadline for myself, I will just push myself to do it, and that's healthy in you know, in that context. But if there's a huge hill and I've been, I don't know, walking for miles the day before, I don't have to do that.
Yes.
Like my A-type will say you do.
Yeah.
But you don't have to. So it's recognising that and honing that in. And conversely, if you're the kind of person who just says, I really want to get off the couch, but I don't, it's recognising that and finding out, well, where can I get the help to be able to do that? And I know I always say, go small, do these, you know, these things in small increments. But do that. Do those things in small increments until you feel confident enough to be able to extend it. And, you know, again, talking about mental health, if somebody says, oh, you know, just go out, get some fresh air, you'll be okay. That's not going to be applicable for a lot of people, or go on medication. That might not be. But really take some time to know yourself and start thinking, what would really work for me? And sometimes you have to test it. And it doesn't work, and then you you come back. But really, what would work for me? If you have been told to do something, or you see something on the internet, it might not be for you.
Welcome back to Mental Health Matters Office Hours, where we're talking to Dr. Hayley about new managers inheriting teams and issues that might bring. So are there any other issues that new managers might face, whether they're promoted from the team or come from outside? And what could a good first day look like?
So a good first day, I think you got to think about that first day before the first day arrives. So I think it's what we talked about before the break. What would a successful first day look like for me? What are the conversations I would want to have had? What are the key things I want to get across? How do I mean, you touched on it beautifully yourself earlier. How do I want to show up? You know, it's that kind of being intentional. What's my aim for this first day? What's my attitude need to be? What do I need to pay attention to in that first day? And what are the important conversations I need to have?
There's a lot of not just self-awareness, but a lot of self-reflection that needs to happen, I think. And I don't think we realise this enough. I don't think we realise how much psychology permeates through everything that we do. We literally, it's almost like we're unwrapped out of the box and off we go doing life. You know?
Being a manager, managing budget.
It's fine. I'm adulting now, and it's, you know, and actually to do it well, we really need to take that step back and kind of go, how?
There's a lot of planning, isn't there? Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's not one-off planning either, and it's not one-off reflection. And again, I talk about this again, not with everyone from that brand new manager all the way through to really experienced kind of senior leaders like chief execs. That it doesn't matter where you are on that journey, there are so many studies now showing the benefits of regular reflective practice if you are in that power position of a manager or a senior leader. And again, I feel like I keep saying, and I've got something for that. I've got a set of reflective questions.
No, it's brilliant.
That might help. Wherever you are on your management or leadership journey, well, actually, you don't even have to be a manager or a leader. These are just good reflective questions, but they're particularly geared towards anybody who has that responsibility and power position in relation to others. So I'll make a note of that as well.
Thank you. No, I've got them to add to the show notes, because I think it is really important, because it's very easy for people who maybe can't access a coach or whatever. They'll hear it a lot. Oh, self-reflect. Just self-reflect. Okay, how? It's a bit like meditation. How do I sit there and do that? But with prompts, it makes a massive difference. And that's why the practical tools that you offer are so useful. Because all you get are the sound bites when you read about it in the media or whatever. They will just say, "Oh, if you don't like it, don't do it." Okay, well, what do I replace that with then? You know?
Absolutely. I mean, because as a registered psychologist, I have to be engaging in regular reflective practice, and I have to be able to demonstrate that to the regulator. I can't do blank page reflection. Some people I work with can. I have to have prompts. So I've got a little jar. I've cut out different questions. It's like a little raffle, and then I'll pull out a question.
Love it.
And they're important questions, but that really helps me. I can't do blank page reflection. Some people can, I can't.
I love that. I have an app that does a similar thing.
Okay.
So, absolutely brilliant. I'm the same. You look at a blank page and kind of go, what do I write about today?
And this is why this is so good, this chat, because it's really bringing out how much goes behind being a new manager. You don't just turn up and go, I'm the manager, and off you go. There's so much reflection before you start and as you go along as well. It's so revealing for me. Not having been, I've been a manager once, but not being very experienced in it. So it's so helpful, this discussion.
I think so, definitely.
And what about if a new manager starts to struggle with the workload? If the job doesn't turn out to be exactly as the description says, or if they lose team members, and there's a shortage of staff, so what would you suggest a new manager does then?
Again, there's no magic potion, unfortunately. I've faced this myself, and I'm sure we all have. I think the first thing is you've got to prioritise a conversation with your line manager, because they might not be aware. So if they keep coming through and going, "Oh, this is a priority and this is a priority," it's important that you're courageous enough. I think it shouldn't need courage if you've got a good relationship with your line manager. I didn't always have a good relationship with one of my line managers who would chuck priorities at me. But you've got to sit down and have that conversation and be very clear on these are the resources that are needed to meet all these additional commitments, or we need to downscale this priority to make way for this new one. That was always I always found that a really helpful conversation, and lots of my clients find that a helpful conversation where you give the decision maker the choice. It's like, okay, you said this was a priority and now this is a priority. Which of these should we focus on? Because we've got limited resources. We've also got business as usual to focus on, particularly if you're delivering like a frontline service, and maybe you're running kind of a care home or something. Patients and service users still need to be looked after, and there's all these other things being thrown. So I think that's important. Have that conversation with your line manager. I think I would always recommend just keeping track and reviewing everything additional that's being asked for, and set out and think about what could be done with current resources, and then what's the gap. And then we talked about this earlier, sometimes extra hours are needed. You know, a crisis situation, you're not just going to go off and leave a patient unattended because it's the end of your shift. And I get we don't want to create a reliance from the organisation on that. And I think but key is to keep a record of extra hours that staff are doing, that you are doing, and then use that as evidence and data.
And I think that I agree. I think it is about the evidence, and a lot of the time people feel too busy to actually do that. But that it's so important to be able to claim that back, whether it's in time or in money even. And if you're a lawyer, you have to bill every single minute. So just think in those terms. But what you said about the priorities, is this a priority? I've seen it work twice, and it's happened in quite fractured ways. So one, it was an outburst in a meeting, another was just an outburst at the desk, but the question was still asked and it was answered and it was dealt with on both the occasions, and both those clients kind of came away going, well, okay, I didn't go exactly as planned, but the outcome was right. So asking which is the priority you want me to focus on is really, really important. Now this one's I think a bit more of a personal one for me, because I always used to have new management training sessions, and one of the biggest things that people kind of, I think, really appreciated was some of them came away thinking, I don't actually want to be a manager, because the skills of the manager and the skills of the team player are very, very different. My own management didn't really like me doing that because all of these new managers were suddenly like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. But I just had so many people, okay, this was in the NHS, nurses who'd been promoted, and they said, I beg for ward shifts because I can't do this all the time. And so what are those differences in the skills of the manager and the skills of the team player, and why is it management is not for everybody?
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, a manager is also a team player, because you're part of different teams, aren't you?
Yes.
You're leading a team, but you're part of that team. You're part of a team with your management peers. Yes. So you still need those kind of team player skills. But I think for a manager, there's that emotional intelligence aspect, and in particular, the people skills required to deeply understand how to motivate others, and to influence others, being able to and being prepared to challenge in an effective way, so not avoiding important conversations in a way that maybe we can get away with avoiding as team members. I think for managers, it's the skill of setting and holding people to performance standards, that you have responsibilities and therefore skills that are needed around managing risk, around managing budgets, around hiring and recruitment, such as we talked about earlier. There's a real skill in interviewing well, and hiring and recruiting. And I think, and I was kind of really, I was in two minds whether to include this, because I think about some of my neurodivergent management clients, but you've got to be really organised, because other people are reliant on you. So I'll give you an example. A new manager that I'm working with had complaints made against them because they just weren't keeping on top of things as innocuous as holiday requests.
But that's a big thing,
right? And so if my holiday's not approved, I can't go on holiday, and my partner's booked, right? And so you've got to be organised. But I know for some people that executive functioning skill of organisation is harder. But again, get some help. Think of workarounds that help you be organised and make sure your team are getting what they need, but not at your expense. So you're getting kind of neurodivergent burnout.
Yes, that's really important, because it is about finding the workaround that works for you. Not when we say get organised, it doesn't mean get organised in the conventional way of getting organised. Do the way that works for you, whether it's setting reminders on your phone or whatever it might be. It is about doing what works for you. I think that's really important. And what about then? You've got your job, you've spent your first 90 days, all of that's going great-ish, but you just don't want to do it. Management's not for me. What then?
Well, first of all, I think that's one of the most incredibly brave and mature decisions that someone can make.
Agreed.
Because that shows exceptional self-awareness and humility. Because management isn't for everyone, and there shouldn't be any shame in that. I think part of the issue is kind of societally and culturally, working your way up is seen as the mark of success. And also, some people, that's the only way they're going to get extra money. Maybe, cost of living crisis. And so taking on that extra responsibility is often the only way to earn more money. So there is also a responsibility on organisations to think of different ways to help people thrive in their careers and earn good money. It doesn't just have to be the management track.
Yes.
I think I've seen too many excellent technical experts get promoted because of their technical excellence. But as you rightly point out, that doesn't necessarily mean that management's for them, and they become less happy.
Yeah.
And then the irony is they perform less well, and then they start to be seen as a problem.
Yes.
So I think acknowledging this isn't for me, great first step. It might be you talk to a career coach or someone in your organisation about what a good alternative might be. It might be you talk to a trusted friend about how to broker the conversation with your line manager. So again, there's some thought that's needed in it, but I would say the sooner that you can step down, the better.
Yes, because it's helpful for the organisation as much as it is for your own well-being.
Absolutely.
Dr Hayley, as always, this has been a brilliant conversation. We can talk to you forever, so please come back on the show again.
I will. I don't need asking twice.
Excellent. Where can we learn more about you and Halo Psychology?
So I'm always on LinkedIn. So put in Dr Hayley Lewis, you'll find me on LinkedIn, and my website is www.halopsychology.com, and that's Halo as in the angel. halopsychology.com, and there's all sorts of free resources for people to download there.
Amazing. We're going to have the information, the templates in the show notes as well.
So this is a competency framework. It was a organisational piece of research. So several universities, several organisations with staff working with two fabulous colleagues, so Professor Jo Yarker and Dr Rachel Lewis, no relative, I wish. And so they did this huge piece of work exploring we keep saying to managers, you got to get better at creating environments where people feel less stressed, because we know that stress gets in the way of performance. We know that management behaviour can impact our stress levels. That relationship between a person and their line manager is in my experience, and what research suggests is one of the key factors that determines our performance in the workplace. So this is a really important piece of work. And so through all sorts of kind of diving into other research, focus groups, interviews, other data gathering, they've been able to distill down, as you can see here, 4 key competencies that we need as managers that can help prevent or reduce stress in our workplaces, in our teams. And there's some lovely stuff here that I know the kind of people that watch your programme or listen to this, they're the kind of people that would do this stuff. So hopefully it kind of reassures and reinforces their own practice. So here you've got the importance of being respectful and responsible. So acting with integrity, that includes role modelling how to be. If it's not enough for a manager to say, oh, don't do your emails out of hour. If I, as a manager, am doing my emails out of hour, because that sends a signal. So that kind of integrity, doing what I'll say I'll do, managing my emotions is key. This is a big thing that's been coming up with a lot of my own clients about emotion regulation, emotion management. And I've got an article I've written about that, which I can always share. And just being really considerate in how you're approaching each unique human being that you are responsible for, ultimately. Being really clear, this really touches on some of the questions that you asked me in our chat today, that whole workload management, and what do you do when there's too much work coming in, And key here, as the research has found, and as conversations with good managers has found, is not avoiding those conversations, managing and communicating work expectations, and giving people as much notice as possible so they can plan their time, they can plan their lives as well, and kind of creating an environment where you're all in it together, where you're trying to solve this stuff together. You're not just telling people what to do. So there's that kind of empowerment aspect as well. This really speaks to something that's important to me, and something that I touched on in our conversation, is managing the individual within the team, not kind of lumping everyone together and having one size fits all approaches. We each see stress in different ways, so what might be stressful for one person isn't necessarily stressful for someone else. That framework or methodology that works with that person might not work with that other person, and so really getting to know each of the people you are responsible for and who report into you, being accessible. I would say have some boundaries around this, because otherwise you're going to start to feel stressed and potentially burn out. Being friendly and sociable, so what we talked about earlier, and kind of having that compassion and empathy, not jumping to judgment. So again, this touches on what we talked about earlier, that reaction I'm getting, rather than having a snap judgment of, oh, they're a problem or they're lazy, it's taking that empathetic and compassionate step and thinking, okay, that's a really interesting reaction. What's going on behind that? What's the emotion behind that? And working with that. And not avoiding difficult situations. So just being prepared to lean in and manage difficult situations. We know that avoidance of conflict, and managers who are seen to avoid conflict are seen as ineffective by their team members. So what the irony is, their team members might not like being challenged or kind of being involved in the conflict, but conversely they will also judge a manager as not being effective. So having the skills and making sure you're developing your skills in feeling able to manage conflict well, making sure you are aware of the breadth of organisational resources, so that you're up to date on policies, that you're getting the training that you need on certain policies and processes. So for example, if your sickness absence policy has changed, making sure you're au fait with that, making sure you're aware of things that staff can access, things that you can access. So this is one of the things I always check in with managers is, are they aware of things to signpost to? So like employee counselling, for example. And I'm always surprised at the number of managers who don't know where to signpost to. And taking that, because ultimately you are the person responsible. You are responsible for the team and how the team functions. And so any issues coming up in the team, the buck stops with you ultimately. Doesn't mean you're not attempting to solve it with the other people. But that accountability and responsibility sits with you, and you've got to take that seriously. So I absolutely love this framework. I think there's I can send you the link. Well, there's a reference in the sketch note, because there's a more detailed breakdown with specific detailed behaviours underneath each of these, if listeners want to know more.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Hayley. That's so helpful. Yeah. And I love how that summarises everything, because that really does put our whole conversation into the work context, and it's bite-sized to take away.
Yeah, it's really easy to follow and understand. It's very clear.
Yeah. As always, it's been such a treat to have you on the show. Thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Oh my goodness, just reflecting on that conversation, and it is funny. I wrote the book Be a Great Manager now based on all the bad managers I've worked with.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, and it's the doing the opposite of all of those things. So everything that's in the book, I've worked for or with someone who's done the opposite thing.
Oh my goodness. Well, yeah, and I probably worked with a lot of those type of people as well.
In my
time.
It's really funny. And I think Hayley's absolutely right. There's just so much, and you summarised that so well. There's so much that goes into management, not just before it, but during it, and to make it successful.
Yeah, and unless you hear or read somebody like Dr. Hayley, you're not, or unless you have a good line manager yourself, you're not necessarily going to know that so much goes into it.
Yeah.
I should think a lot of people do just turn up on the next day and go, right, I'm the manager, and that's that.
Or it feels like it.
Or it feels like it.
And that's where we talk about being on the other side of it, being in the team.
Yeah.
I've seen people walk in and you just kind of think, how did you get, who did you know to get promoted?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that goes on. And also it kind of made me think of the police service as well. Because, you know, one day you're a police constable and then the next day you're put into the sergeant position. And that's very difficult because you've got all of your mates around you, and obviously you have to have a good relationship with all your colleagues there. And then you have to be the one in charge of that. And I should think that's a very difficult shift to make.
And I think Dr. Hayley really summarised it well by talking about how it's emotional intelligence skills, the people skills that make it different. I'd also say it was strategising skills. And the only reason I say that, because your point about the police service reminded me, I was delivering fire training, just, you know, how to exit the building type. But to train me, they had a fire sergeant or controller in, and he told us a story about how when he was promoted to management, he was a firefighter. He loved being a firefighter. He turned up to his first job and fire fought, and no one organised the whole event. No one organised what was going on because he jumped in and done his old job.
Gosh.
Luckily, you know, everything happened, everything was okay.
Yeah.
But he's always learned from that, and he's always said the job of the manager and the job of the team are so different. Even though you are still part of a team, what you're doing on the spot is not the same, and you cannot leave the strategizing because that's your role.
Well, exactly. And there's two things. Like, one, if you're so used to doing the hands-on job, and the other is if you really love the hands-on job, all of a sudden you're in a position of management. Great, but I've heard a lot of teachers that say this.
Yeah.
I don't really understand it because I think it would be great to have less time in the classroom on one way, but they're like, I'm not in the classroom anymore. I don't like it. And they don't want to be in that position. So it's a double-edged sword, I think, becoming a manager. Yeah.
The nice thing with teaching is that there's different pathways. So you don't have to go down pastoral, year heads and so on. You can become head of department, which I think does suit some people better because they're strategizing in a slightly different way.
Yes, of course, but they're still 100% teaching. So yes, you're absolutely right.
But not every job has that.
No, not every job has that. So it's really hard. So
I guess to close today, because again, I know we talk about this a lot. We talked about it in the break with Dr. Hayley as well. We talk a lot about, all right, this is what not to do and so on. So what does it look like when you've made the right choices? What if you don't want to go into management? What is another option? So for me, it was going self-employed. That's hard in itself, but it suits me because no one has to, well, it suits managers as well as no one has to manage me. That's not nice, you know. So that would be one option. What about for yourself? What do you think would suit?
I think you're right. I mean, as you know, I do an element of self-employment as well. And then you're kind of the manager and you're the hands-on person and you're kind of everything. Yeah. So, and that suits me and that suits you. Yeah. And it suits a lot of people. Yeah. It doesn't suit everyone. And so therefore, a lot of people actually like to be managed. Yeah. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that. No, because they come in, they have structure. And a lot of people who are good managers kind of, they then look to it's going back to the individual team members again, isn't it? And getting to know them. They know how to manage each individual to get the best out of them for their full potential. And sometimes it's not about telling somebody, oh, go and become a manager yourself, because that's the next step up. It might be go and be a technical specialist, go and be it might be the niche problem solver, go and be a consultant. There are other options, and sometimes it's worth having a word with your manager about what are the other options if I don't want to go into management. Yeah. The manager's not going to go, oh, I'm really offended now, you know. Well, no, exactly. It's all about getting the best out of each individual person. Yes. And on that, have a healthy week.